Hello friends, I welcome all in this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to discuss the inclusive growth in India. This topic is exclusively mentioned in your syllabus of the General Studies paper 3, and in the previous 6 to 7 years there has been question on this topic 4 times. So that shows the importance of this topic. This topic is also important because right now we may be having good economic growth rate. We are the highest economic growth rate country in the world, but still we are not achieving the inclusive growth, right? So we will discuss everything about this topic. So in the index we can see we will see the previous year questions. What is the meaning of inclusive growth? The elements of inclusive growth. What are the need of inclusive growth? Why inclusive growth has been poor in India? Then different government initiatives. What are the challenges in achieving the good inclusive growth in India? And what is the planning period strategy with respect to India? And what are the different suggestions in India? Now, first of all, let us see the previous year questions. So in 2017, the question was, what are the salient features of inclusive growth? Has India been experiencing such a growth process? Analyze and suggest measures of inclusive growth. So question is upon features, whether India has been achieving this or not, and what are the measures of inclusive growth. Then in 2016 again there was a question, comment on the challenges for inclusive growth, which include careless and useless manpower in the Indian context. Suggest measures to be taken for facing these challenges. So here the question is about the challenges and what are the measures. Then 2014 again there was a question, capitalism has guided the world economy to unprecedented prosperity. However, it often encourages short-sightedness and contributes to wide disparities between the rich and the poor. Is this correct? In this light, would it be correct to believe and adopt capitalism driving inclusive growth in India? So here the interlinkage between capitalism and the inclusive growth has to be indicated, and various dimensions regarding that has to be discussed. Then in 2013 there was a question which had a interlinkage between the inclusive growth and the corporate social responsibility. Now, first of all, let us see what is the meaning of inclusive growth. So friends, there are two terms. One is the inclusive, another is the growth. So these are the two important terms which inculcate two different dimensions. So first is regarding the inclusive and second is regarding the growth. So growth basically means GDP growth, right? So that just means the increment in the production of goods and services during a particular year in a country, right? So GDP growth basically means increase in the resource generation, right? So this is the one dimension. The second dimension is inclusive. Inclusive basically means that this growth which we have achieved in the form of more goods and services being produced in the country, this growth should be reaching to every section of the society, right? So the point is that everyone should benefit from this growth. And when I say everyone, see, the rich people, wealthiest people, they are already getting a lot of benefits from the growth in the form of high profits, in the form of high salaries. But who is not achieving? It is the people at the bottom line, the people who are not having the jobs, the people who are engaged in the unremunerative agricultural practices, the women, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward classes, minorities, the disabled people, senior citizens. So there are a lot of categories of people who are not achieving the benefits of the economic growth directly. So we have to ensure that this growth benefit is reaching to each and every section of society and they have equal opportunity to participate in the economy, right? So there are two dimensions that we have seen, and apart from these two dimensions, what is important is two more things. One is that there should be equality of opportunity. Equality of opportunity. That means everyone should have equal opportunity. Everyone should have equal opportunity. Whether the person is belonging to one particular caste or one particular religion, particular gender, it should not matter. Everyone should have equal opportunity to participate in the economic process. One thing is this. Second thing is that not only they have the opportunity, they also have the capability to participate. Capability to participate. Capability means they should have skills, they should have relevant education, vocational education, they should have the time. Everything is part of the capability. So how this growth can reach to every section of society, that is answered by these two dimensions, that is equality of opportunity and capability, right? So through this we can achieve inclusive growth. So now let us see the meaning of inclusive growth. It is a growth process. So it is about the growth process, right? Which focuses to achieve not only faster growth. See, faster growth is required so that we have tremendous resources, and those resources can be used for the further distribution to the needy people, right? So faster growth is very, very important, but also ensures broad-based improvement in the quality of life of the people. This is the second aspect, that the growth process should result into the overall improvement in the quality of life of the people. Unless and until the quality of life of the people is not enhanced, we can't say that the growth process is inclusive. So faster and broad-based. So we can say faster growth plus broad-based growth, right? So there are two main ideas. One is the income growth. Income should grow, and second is equitable distribution of such growth, which is missing. We are having high growth, although there is a potential to achieve more growth, but what is more important than achieving more growth is that we distribute it equitably. We distribute it equitably across India. The rural regions are not left behind. The northeast is not left behind. We spread it across all the sectors. Agriculture sector is not left behind. Labor intensive sector is not left behind. So everything has to be taken care of. That is the essence of inclusive growth. So this shows the importance of inclusive growth. So now, inclusive growth, as per the literal meaning of the two words, refer to both the pace. Pace means faster, and the pattern of economic growth of a country. Pattern here basically means the equitable distribution. Like, who is the person who is generating this growth? Who is that person who is generating this growth? Or who is that person who is getting the benefit of such growth? So, pace as well as the pattern, both are important. Both are equally important. So it focuses on economic growth, which is a necessary and crucial condition. See friends, economic growth we can't avoid. We can't say economic growth is enough. No, we still don't have enough economic growth. For poverty reduction, definitely, it adopts a long-term perspective. So here the focus is on long-term growth, and how the long-term growth can be achieved when it is environment friendly, when it is empowering the future generations through education, skill development, more information about the career options, about the self-employment opportunities, about the agricultural activities. So two aspects. When I say long term basically means that it is environment friendly and it is providing the skill set, the information and education to the future generations, right? So let me recap the entire discussion that we have done till now. So there are two aspects. One is the inclusive, another is the growth. Growth means GDP growth. Inclusive means benefit reaching to every section, and that can be achieved through two dimensions. One is everyone has equal opportunity, and second is everyone has the capability to avail that opportunity. This is one aspect. This is one way of understanding the inclusive growth. Then second way of understanding the inclusive growth is that it is, growth means faster growth and inclusive means broad based. That is, income redistribution is happening to all the sections of society, to all the sectors of economy. The income is coming from all the sectors of economy equally. Income is coming from all the regions of country and dispersed in all the regions of country equally, right? That is the second way of understanding inclusive growth. And third way is this, that not only the pace but the pattern is important for calling a growth process. Now, what are the elements of inclusive growth? Elements or the indicators or the areas in which the inclusive growth will be reflected, right? So inclusive growth is happening when poverty is reducing. So right now we have almost 22% level of poverty as per the Tendulkar committee. So when this poverty is reduced, then we can say the poverty reduction is the inclusive growth is happening. Employment generation, we have almost 6.1% unemployment as per the NSSO data. This is, when unemployment is less, then inclusive growth is happening. We have good agricultural development. When we have good agricultural development, inclusive growth is happening. Social sector basically means education, health, housing, sanitation, etc. Then equal distribution of income, very very important. How? Through equal wages, through progressive taxation, through welfare schemes, subsidies, the equitable user charges, and so on. So this is how equitable distribution of income is possible. Environment protection, when water is not polluted, air is not polluted, forests are not degraded, then it is inclusive. Reduction in regional disparities, again taking care of rural areas, slum areas, northeast India, tribal areas, all these areas, when they are taken care of, then it is inclusive growth. And finally, industrial development. Why industrial development? Because industrial development provides jobs. Also, it leads to infrastructure generation. So this is how we can achieve good inclusive growth. These are the elements. When we are talking about inclusive growth, we need to look into that, are all these elements being satisfied or not? That is where we have to look upon, right? Now let us see the features of inclusive growth. What are the features of inclusive growth? First of all, economic growth is really required. Without economic growth, we can't do anything, right? So here we can see economic growth is a prerequisite. Second, it focuses upon the pace and pattern of growth, which we have already discussed. That is, it is based on the utilitarian social welfare function. Utilitarian means there has to be some objective which satisfies the people's needs. So we have to see that needs of maximum number of people are satisfied through this process. Concerned with sustained growth. Sustained, again, it means across all the sectors, environment friendly, and which is empowering the future generations. Then focus is on productive employment rather than income redistribution only. So in the short term, we can go for income redistribution through subsidies, through welfare measures, pension, etc. But in the long term, that is not sustainable. In the long term, we have to provide the quality employment to the people. When people get quality employment, they can generate resources for themselves. They are not dependent upon the outside people. So that is the beauty of productive employment. Both individuals and firms are subject of analysis. So we are not focusing only upon the individual. We are also focusing upon the firms. That is, the firm also should take care of inclusive growth through corporate social responsibility, through clean production process, through providing jobs to all sections of society, through developing the infrastructure in and around their plants. So firms, the production companies, they also should take care of the inclusive growth. Then it is not defined in terms of specific targets. See, we have seen that there are many areas, if they are developing, we can say that inclusive growth is happening. But it is not always that when we achieve particular target, we can say that inclusive growth has happened. No, this is a very broad-based concept. If we are able to redistribute the income, even after that, we have to see, is that income being properly utilized by the people. If we start providing universal basic income to everyone, still we can't say that inclusive growth has happened until and unless they are able to spend that income for good quality education, they have good quality health infrastructure, they have the good quality skill development opportunities, everything. So it is a very big, broad process, ever evolving process. It is not defined in specific targets. Then it is fueled with market driven forces, with government playing a facilitatory role. So it is not only that the government will participate, it is the market which will drive. That is, market will develop growth, and such growth can be facilitated by the government through ease of doing business, through some kind of regulation so that there is no monopolistic tendencies against the consumers, through regulating the environmental, bad environmental practices. So government will facilitate, but market will drive. Market will drive not only in growth, but market will also drive in for the, in case of distribution. How? So So we can see there is a public-private partnership in the healthcare which is talked about. So we have to bring private sector also for the redistribution. It is not the responsibility of government only. We have to take advantage of efficiency and the capability of the private sector also. So these are the features. Then inclusive growth is not the end. We can't say that once this is done, inclusive growth is done. No, it is a process. It is a process. That means everything, whether this is the growth, production, job, any welfare scheme, any infrastructure, any financial reform, any step, that when that step is taken, we have to see how is it contributing to the inclusive growth. So we have to see the process. The process becomes inclusive in itself. We can't say that when we achieve this, then it is inclusive growth. No, for achieving particular target, whatever process we are using, that process should also be inclusive process, right? Now let us see the approaches to the inclusive growth. What are the approaches to the inclusive growth? Or what are the different ways through which the countries adopt inclusive growth strategy? So the first way is trickle down approach. India is India has already used this trickle down starting from the first 5-year plan only. We have discussed in the planning process that from the first 5-year plan only we adopted the inclusive growth, and more specifically in the second 5-year plan when we established big industries, big infrastructure, and we said that the benefits of these industries and infrastructure will percolate down to the whole section of society, right? So trickle down approach is the first way out where top to bottom approach is working, and this basically means that the government is giving benefit to the large businesses in the form of tax break, in the form of land, free land or cheaper land, or facilitating the land acquisition. And it is thought that once they become more resourceful, when the large businesses become more resourceful, they will distribute the resources automatically to the lower section of society, right? So this is how the trickle down approach works. In India, we used this trickle down approach, but later we abandoned this because this could not succeed. Then second is the welfare approach. In the welfare, the focus is upon distribution of resources, and this distribution should happen in such a way which enhances the overall satisfaction of the people. So not only the distribution is important, at the same time, is it satisfying the needs of the people? That is equally important. And for that, in India, we have public distribution system, we have pension, we have the maternity benefit schemes, child benefit schemes, we have the subsidies in the electricity to the agriculture sector, to the lower section of society. So all that we are doing so that we can redistribute the income. So we right now are using welfare approach also, not completely but majorly, right? Third approach is bottom up approach. Bottom up, the name itself indicates that planning will come from bottom, decision making will come from bottom, the implementation will be done at the bottom, right? So bottom, when I say bottom, what is the meaning of bottom? First of all, bottom means the people, and how the people plan, how the people decide, and how the people implement through their local bodies. So the local self-government, when the local self-government is involved in planning, decision making and the implementation, then we can say this is the bottom-up approach, right? Why we are giving importance to local self-government? Because they are the best people to decide what is best for their region, what is best for their people. So we are giving them more powers to decide and implement the income generation as well as income distribution policies. So in India, we are definitely adopting this policy, especially after the NITI Aayog in 2015. We are aggressively following this policy, right? So friends, there are different approaches, and it is not that single approach will be used at single time. No, a combination of approach can also be used depending upon the suitability of that approach for a particular area or particular section of society, right? So we are using a combination of welfare approach and the bottom approach, as well as we are also using the public relations approach. The public relations approach means basically that there has to be a good communication between the government and the people through various information, education and communication campaigns. You can see the government is coming up with more mobile applications. Government is coming up with the initiatives like Man Ki Baat and so many other initiatives the government is taking so that the information about the government scheme reaches to the people. At the same time, the people can also tell what is their requirement. So the feedback is given to the government. So it is a win-win situation, because in this case the government and people become one, and the decision making, planning and the implementation becomes best. So there are 4 approaches. I am repeating: trickle down approach, welfare approach, bottom up approach, and last is the public relations approach. In the examination hall, you will never be asked the different approaches, but you have to keep in mind that these 4 different perspectives, right? The question is, why we need inclusive growth in India? Is India experiencing inclusive growth? Very, very important. So this topic has already been asked in the examination. Is India experiencing inclusive growth? So the answer is no, not at all. We can see that our growth rate, if we see the overall growth rate till 1991, our growth rate was Hindu growth rate, that is near about 3%. After 1991, we started having good economic growth rate. At times we also achieved double-digit growth rate. But in the process, we ignored many areas. We ignored various sections of society. There is huge inequality in terms of income also, and in terms of wealth also. Various reports are indicating this inequality that we will just see. In the process of achieving growth, we left behind many areas. We did not generate enough jobs, because this growth after the 1991 was oriented towards service sector, and service sector has limited job generation capacity. So we are not achieving inclusive growth. Various reports we can see. Our focus upon faster growth has actually been, has actually resulted into short-term decision making, which does not have long-term vision, as can be reflected in the form of various environmental clearances which are given just to start production without taking care of benefits of lakhs of people and the ecosystem. The example is one of the case that happened in South India regarding the Vedanta company. That Vedanta company was banned from operating its project because it was so polluting, right? So the point is that in India we have huge evidences that we don't have inclusive growth. So let us see the evidences. As for the Oxfam report, which is given by one of the UK think tank, International Commitment to Reducing Inequality Index. So this is one of the report which is given by the Oxfam International. India has ranked 147th among the 157 countries. That is, we are in the bottom 10 in terms of equality. The inequality is really very, very high. We can see the top 10% people hold 77% of national wealth. The top 1% people hold 51% of national wealth. That means that rest of the 99% people hold almost 48% wealth. The poorest 10% people, they have been living under the burden of debt since 2004. And women and girls are the hardest hit. So overall we can say that if we make the pyramids, so this is the pyramid of wealth and this is the pyramid of population. So we can clearly see that this 10% population, they are holding 77% of wealth, or just 1% population is holding around 50% of wealth. These poorest 10% people who are at the bottom, they are living continuously in debt. So this indicates very, very grave situation, right? So inequality is very, very high. Next, World Inequality Report, which is also given by one of the think tank. As per the World Inequality Report 2018, 1% of the income earners in India received 6% of total income in the early 80s. So in the early 80s, top 1% were having just 6% of income. In 2000, they were having 15% of income, and today they have 22% of income. That means the inequality has multiplied almost by 4 times. Then we have one more report, Human Development Index. In this Human Development Index, the rank of India is very, very low. It is just 130 among 189 countries. Then there is one more report which is given by the World Economic Forum, Inclusive Development Index. This index is showing that India has ranked 62 among the emerging countries, and better than India we have Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So even those countries which are much smaller than us and have less GDP per capita as well as less GDP overall, their inclusivity is much more our inclusivity. So that indicates our failure in achieving the inclusive growth, right? And this particular index, they have focused upon 3 dimensions: the living standards, that is the kind of facility people have in terms of the basic necessities and other necessities, environmental sustainability and protection of future generations from further indebtedness. India's inclusive growth performance. Again, this is one of the report given by the World Economic Forum, and here also they have indicated on various parameters that what is the achievement of India's inclusive growth on different parameter, like in education 3.35 score. So this score is out of the score of 7. Out of 7 we have just 3.35 score in education. Employment 3.14%, asset building 3.04%, financial intermediation, that is the banking sector, corruption 3.99 score, basic services 3.82, fiscal services 2.7. So overall we can say in every dimension we are lagging behind, which is not a good indicator, right? Why we need inclusive growth? So in the earlier trend of economic growth, we left behind the North Central and the Northeast India, which are one of the very large populous states. We did not generate good number of jobs because of the service sector. We also could not grow agriculture sector. So almost 49% people are employed in agriculture sector, which contributes just 14% of GDP. So that means the per capita income in the agriculture sector is very, very low. Then there various sections of society have also been left behind in terms of the job opportunities, earning and the human development. All the three: job, earning and overall development. So all this indicates that inclusive growth is not happening in India, and we really need to do something about that. Now, this is very good statement of the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, which he made at the time of independence, that we should end poverty, ignorance, disease and inequality of opportunity. But despite almost 72 years of independence, which we are going to achieve soon, we have not been able to achieve the end of poverty, ignorance, disease, inequality of opportunity. Now, let us see the planning process and the inclusive growth. So what have been the strategy of government during the planning process, and how government has approached. So till 6th 5-year plan, we were following a trickle down approach only. We thought that if we focus upon the growth, automatically the percolation will happen, but that did not happen. After the 6th 5-year plan, we worked on direct attack on poverty, but the growth was very, very limited. Hindu rate of growth. Then from 1991 onwards, liberalization, privatization and globalization process started. But the focus was tilted towards service sector, which benefited only limited sections, that is the urban sector and the middle class people. So this service sector, this provided the opportunity only to the urban areas and middle class educated people. Environmental degradation became very, very severe. We didn't focus upon the inclusive growth. Finally, first time in 11th 5-year plan in the year 2007, the inclusive growth was talked about. So it was during the 11th 5-year plan in 2007 that for the first time this inclusive growth was talked about. The theme of the 11th 5-year plan was faster, more inclusive and sustainable growth. And again in 12th 5-year plan, this theme was forwarded in the form of rapid, inclusive and sustainable development. So we can say overall this inclusive growth we have adopted since the 12th 5-year plan, not before that, right? Now there can be a question that why we have not been able to achieve inclusive growth in India. So for answering that question, we have to go back to the history, the Britishers' time, the planning period, and the post-planning period, and the recent factors. So all the factors that we have discussed for the poverty, we can safely give as reason for the poor inclusive growth also, because poverty is one of the dimension of inclusive growth only. So I will request you to open your notebook, and from that notebook open the poverty chapter. In this poverty chapter, the discussion that I made regarding the causes of poverty, please revise that. From there you can revise the historical perspective, that is what was the reason in the Britishers' time, the planning process, how the planning process failed, and what are the recent factors. So go through that, and from there you can identify what are the reasons that inclusive growth did not happen in India, right? So these two topics, the poverty and the inclusive growth, they are quite interlinked. That is why I am saying that the reasons are almost same, right? Now, what are the challenges in achieving inclusive growth in India? We have been working since 2007 on inclusive growth, but still, is it really easy thing to achieve inclusive growth? No. We have lots of barriers. So what kind of barrier can be there? Can you think? So I am giving you 5 seconds to think what kind of barrier are there in the process of achieving inclusive growth in India. So take your time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
So one of the biggest barrier is population. If our population is high, then even if we generate lots of resources, the redistribution, after redistribution, the per capita income will be less. So first problem is the population. The second problem is the agriculture sector. In the agriculture sector, we have poor productivity, which hampers the wealth and the income generation. Then we have poor governance in terms of multiplicity of schemes, in terms of corruption, in terms of data problems. So this poor governance is also big barrier in achieving the good inclusive growth. Then we are having the problem of various disasters which are happening not only because of climate change, but also many times because of the extra human burden on the resources. So there are many examples like Chennai floods, the Uttarakhand floods, the drought we can see, earthquake. So these disasters, they hamper the process of achieving faster inclusive growth. The next dimension is that we are lagging behind in the science and technology. We have the front runner in the space, the nuclear, but still we have yet to achieve the good share of nuclear technology in India. We have yet to export the space technology at a very good level. We have yet to be self-sufficient in the defense technology. So until and unless we become technologically superior in such a way that the benefit of this technology is reaching to each and every person in the country, we can't achieve the inclusive growth. Only this technology will go to the agriculture sector to increase the productivity. Only this technology will go to the industry to achieve the fourth industrial revolution. Only this technology will go to improve the quality of infrastructure in India. So this technology is also very, very important, which is not good in India. Then the problem of internal security, the problems like extremism, black money, money laundering, the problem of terrorism, all these problems, they become a challenge in the path of inclusive growth. So friends, how am I generating these points? So for generating these points, I am just picking the point from different syllabus topics. So one, you can refer to environment, you can refer to the internal security, science and technology, disasters. So 4 points I have taken from there. Then you can see in the agriculture sector, in the economy. So everywhere you can see there are problems that we are facing. Then from the GS paper 2, I have picked the point of the poor governance, corruption, etc. So overall, we can see that this inclusive growth process is very, very challenging. Very, very challenging, right? So let us see what are the challenges. Challenges of inclusive growth in India: high population, unsustainable development, that is, which is not environment friendly. Water crisis we can see in Chennai. We are one of the very high water intensive country. Also, we are water scarce country. High pollution levels, deforestation. So this unsustainable development can't lead to inclusive growth, because we can't, we will not have the sufficient resources for the young generation, the future generation. Poor infrastructure, our logistics cost is very, very high. We still have to give 100% access to energy, especially the electricity, to every person in the country. Internal security challenges: low agriculture growth, poverty and inequality, unemployment, health, education. So in the health also there are lots of issues: malnutrition, IMR, poor sanitation and so on. In the education also, India is lacking behind, especially in terms of the quality, which is quite reflected by the ASER reports. Then in the gender equality, we have various problems like female feticide and son preferences, sexual harassment, gender gap, and our labor force participation rate is very, very low. So when till the time this gender inequality is there, our 50% population can't fully participate. Until the time this 50% population can't fully participate, can we really achieve inclusive growth? No, we can't. Then there are other challenges regarding the data, corruption, slow moving economic reforms, child labor and so on and so forth. Right? Now, what are the government's initiatives? We will discuss the government initiatives in the recent times. So now let us see the recent government initiatives. We have seen the planning period strategy, and these recent government initiatives we can see in different perspectives. So as I told you, we have to put all the schemes into perspectives. We don't need to write the schemes directly, but first write the perspective and then write the name of the scheme. So here we have different 5 perspectives. The first perspective is accelerated and inclusive growth, which is majorly focusing upon faster growth, that is pace of the growth. Then human development, which is majorly focusing upon the second aspect, that is the pattern of growth. Third, sustainable development. Fourth, equity, security and resilience. This is also focusing upon the pattern of growth. And lastly, honest, transparent and accountable governance, the 5th point. So these are the 5 dimensions. Under each of these dimensions, the government has taken lots of initiatives. And this picture I have taken from the government website only, where the government has shared this picture as the initiatives for the inclusive growth. So what are the inclusive growth initiatives? Regarding the agriculture sector, we have various schemes: Krishi Sinchai scheme, ENAM, Fasal Bima scheme, food parks. In the manufacturing sector, we have it for Make in India. For the infrastructure, we have for the Udan and the Sagarmala, which are focusing on the civil aviation and the port-based industry, port-based infrastructure. We have Startup India, Digital India, Startup India for providing the entrepreneurship opportunities so that the jobs can also be generated. Digital India to improve the efficiency and reach of the services. Smart India for the urbanization, and Mudra scheme to provide the financing for the startups as well as to the micro, medium and small industries. So all these are the initiative in agriculture, manufacturing, infrastructure, urban areas and rural areas, which will accelerate the accelerate the inclusive growth. Then human development. For the human development, we are focusing upon the youth through yoga, Khelo India Abhiyan, focus on learning outcomes in the education sector, research fellowships, scholarships, etc. We are also focusing upon the Atal Innovation Mission, which is under the NITI Aayog. This is innovation which percolate across almost all the perspectives. Very, very important. Innovation will increase the efficient utilization of resources. Then we have this Kaushal Vikas, which is ultimately, part of not only the human development but also the accelerated and inclusive growth and every other important aspect. Then sustainable development. For the sustainable development, we are focusing upon the renewable energy through Solar Alliance, the Ujala scheme and Swachh Bharat mission. Then for the equity, we are providing the extended paid maternity leave through the Maternity Benefit Act, Jan Suraksha Abhiyan, extended food security, Poshan Abhiyan, Ujwala, Gram Jyoti Yojana and dialysis scheme, etc. Then for the honest, transparent, accountable government, we are providing through Jan Dhan Yojana, DBT and Aadhaar, that is JAM, and anti-corruption legislations we are coming up with. So when you are writing the answer, you can safely make this kind of diagram. It will enhance your marks because examiner will understand that you are not writing the name of schemes blindly, and then you don't need to give the details of the schemes. You are writing the mains examination, dear. You're not writing the prelims examination. So don't write the details of the scheme. Just write the different perspective, and under each of the perspective write the name of the scheme. Then if we see the more dimensions of the current government is having various pro-poor schemes, like in the food security, we are having National Food Security Act. Then for the financial inclusion, the Jan Dhan Yojana. Then for the Jan Suraksha, or for the social security, we have Atal Pension Yojana. So these are the very, very important initiatives: the food security, the financial inclusion and the social security. Then there are a host of initiatives which have been taken in the Union Budget 2018-19. This Union Budget 18-19 has been one of the very remarkable budget. Although the budget of 2019 and 19-20 the interim budget has already come, and the new budget is just to come. But these initiatives which have been taken by the government, they focus upon the inclusive growth. So we can see in the health sector, National Health Protection Scheme, that is for the Ayushman Bharat, and then various schemes for providing livelihood opportunities in the rural areas. Various initiatives for the labor intensive sectors like agro-based industries, MSME and the textiles. Then we have also proposed increase in the volume of institutional credit for agriculture. Then various initiatives have been taken for the employment generation, like Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program, MG Narega, Pradhan Mantri Jan Protsahan Yojana, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kaushal Yojana, National Urban Livelihood Mission. Some of these initiatives, most of these initiatives have been running for a long time. The present government is increasing the funding to these initiatives because these are very, very important initiatives. Then we have taken various initiatives for eliminating the poverty, inequality and to empower the marginalized sections of society by expanding the social security. Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, Atal Pension Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, and Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So there are a host of schemes, right? When you are writing the answer, take care of the perspectives, right? Here, for example, you can see the livelihood opportunity for the rural areas, the employment opportunities for the elimination of poverty inequality, for the institutional credit to the agriculture. So there are dimensions, and under each of these dimensions there are government schemes. So please take care of this thing, that don't write the name of a scheme directly. Write the perspective or the broad heading, and then under that please write the government scheme name. Now what can be the way outs? What can be the suggestions? We have seen there are a lot of challenges where government is taking a lot of initiatives, but at the same time the inclusive growth has not happened. So what can be the way out? What more needs to be done? So let us see what more needs to be done. So can you think what more needs to be done? Can you give the suggestions? So now let us see the suggestions and recommendations. And when we see the suggestion and recommendation, please think from two perspectives. One, how we can generate more resources. That is how to fasten the growth. That is the first initiative. Second thing is that how we can redistribute such resources in much more productive way. Right? So how to fasten the growth and how to redistribute the growth. See from two perspectives. Then you can write better answer. So from the first thing is how to increase the growth. So friends, the growth can be increased in two major areas. The service sector is already growing very good, but still in the service sector we can have some areas like retail, the trade, etc. However, major growth has to happen in the agriculture sector and the manufacturing sector. In the manufacturing sector, we have taken various initiatives like Make in India. We are also coming up with the labor reforms. We are also coming up with the ease of doing business. But many more things needs to be done. This ease of doing business has not completely happened. This financing through the Mudra Yojana has not completely happened. We are having the challenges of Industrial Revolution 4.0 where lots of our unorganized manufacturing entities, they will become obsolete, redundant. They will become out of competition. We are facing the competition from countries like Bangladesh, the Indonesia, the Malaysia, which are low cost countries. So the opportunity that we are having because of exit of labor intensive companies from China, are we really going to capture that opportunity in India through the coastal employment zone or not? That is the question. So we have to focus upon the manufacturing sector, industrial and the infrastructure sector, financial sector reforms. Financial sector reforms very, very important because we don't have corporate bond market. Until we have the good corporate bond market, we can't have long-term financing, and if we can't have the long-term financing, we can't have the good infrastructure growth. The crisis like IL and FS crisis can happen again because we still don't have long-term financing resources. Our financial sector is in crisis because of the NPAs. So we have to really bring the reforms which can increase the availability, accessibility and affordability of the financial services as well as the financial resources to the entire population, right? So four things I am repeating: in the service sector, certain areas which are labor intensive, the manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, infrastructure investment and the financial sector reforms. These 5 areas we have to take care if really want to achieve the faster growth. Then coming to the equitable allocation of resources, the second dimension. In the second dimension, we have to focus upon providing free health care, education, pension, child benefits and other public services that also work for women and girls. So especially we have to provide the free facilities for the women and girls because they don't have the purchasing power, and their families don't provide them these facilities because they think that this is paraya dhan, one day they will be gone from the family, so why to spend this money? So when government provides them these facilities, then they can really get good education, health, which is a good thing for India. We should also free up the women's time by providing them the facility, good water facility, good electricity and child care, because most of their times goes in collection of water from the long distances, collection of wood for the energy purpose and for the child care activities. The government is working through the Ujjwala, through the maternity benefit scheme and through the various water schemes, but lot more needs to be done. Then and the under taxation of rich individuals and corporations. So in India there is an allegation, which is also true for a large extent, that the rich individuals, they also pay 30% tax, and the middle class people, they also pay 30% tax. So there should be rich tax, super rich tax, which is not in India. There is some kind of surcharge, but that has not completely taken care of this thing. Then we have to also focus upon the different states so that there is a balanced regional development. In India, we still don't have balanced regional development. We have to focus upon states which are lacking behind in the human development indicators. The states like Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal. We can give them special packages, or we can provide them good opportunities in the form of the tax breaks and the income tax, so that more industries are attracted to their place, etc. So this balanced regional development has to happen. Then resource allocation, it has to be seen in the long term, and not only the government but also the private sector has to participate. See, the private sector and civil society, they can ensure the government is providing efficient and equitable resources, right? So in today's time, if you really want the good governance, it is not only the government but also the private sector and the civil society which has to come into front. Then we have to provide the quality employment. Quality employment means the employment to the organized sector, right? Then capacity building has to happen with the help of reskilling and the upskilling, because industrial revolution 4.0 is approaching and already we have a huge shortage of the skills in India. Agriculture development has to happen, because see, agriculture provides 50% of the employment but only contributes to 14% of GDP. So all these are the suggestions that we should take care. I'm just revising again. So in the growth, we have to take care of the manufacturing, industry, and we have to take care of the service sector, financial sector, and the agriculture sector. For the equitable allocation of resources, we have to focus upon the providing free facilities to the women, and then freeing up their time, having more taxation upon the rich people, and then we have to take care of the balanced regional development. We have to take care of the short-term and long-term requirement of the resource allocation, and for that we have to include the private sector and the civil society also. We have to provide quality employment, capacity building, and the good agricultural development. So friends, with this I conclude this lecture, and I can say that you have really mastered the topic of inclusive growth. Now you can write any topic. So whenever you are writing any answer on the inclusive growth, think about the different dimensions of inclusive growth and how this is impacting the inclusive growth. For example, there is a question on the capitalism and the inclusive growth. So see how capitalism can increase the growth, and see, is capitalism enough to redistribute the growth, and from that perspective give your discussion. When there is a question on corporate social responsibility, then you can pick up the dimension that the corporates have been having good growth, but are they redistributing, right? So every topic you can now interlink with the inclusive growth, right? So thank you very much. Enjoy, happy learning.